Okay, I know, this topic has been beaten to death, but I still want to get my full 2 cents in on the NASCAR Playoffs. The NASCAR Playoffs is something that will get one of 3 reactions. Those who love it, those who hate it, and those who simply accept it. I'm on the accepting side, but I have to say that with the current championship format completing its 8th season, which I should remind everyone that the current point system is the 3rd longest in NASCAR history, if you can believe that, the question still needs to be answered. Is the playoffs good for NASCAR? Let's first take a step back, all the way back to 1975. It was the 3rd year under NASCAR's modern era, and introduced a brand new point system created by the late Bob Latford. The point system laid out simple as this. The winner gets 175 points and it trickles down to 43rd place, which gets 34 points. Bonus points are awarded for leading a lap and leading the most laps at 5 apiece. Whoever gets the most points at the end of the season is a champion. Was it perfect? No, but it was simple and widely accepted. This format would be in place until the end of the 2003 season. However, early into the 2003 season, it was announced that longtime sponsor Winston would be leaving NASCAR at year's end. Not too long after, Nextel Communications became the new sponsor for the rebranded NASCAR Nextel Cup Series in 2004. But near the end of the 2003 campaign, there have been growing rumors of a rebranding for the NASCAR point system. NASCAR was influenced by the success of the USAR Hooters Pro Cup Series when they instituted a 5-race playoff series with the top teams in the series to determine a champion. On top of that, Nextel and NBC Sports were pushing for a new way of crowning a champion, and it became reality in the offseason of 2004 with the chase for the Nextel Cup. At the end of 26 races, the top 10 in point standings reset. The first place driver in the standings begin the chase with 5,050 points, second place driver with 5,045, and so on. Then whoever has the most points in that 10 race chase would be the champion. This announcement was loved and hated, no in between. A lot thought it was unfair and not right for consistency to not matter, and that the 26 race regular season was more of a practice session and not treated as part of the championship. Others thought it would add more excitement to the final half of the season. NASCAR did say that the reasoning for this was to make the mid-season more competitive and increase fan interest and television ratings. Keep that in mind. The timing of the start of the playoffs would coincide with the start of college football, Major League Baseball playoffs, and especially the NFL. However, things would get more wild with the point system. 2 years later, they changed it again from 10 to 12 drivers. Then in 2011, they changed it so that the 11th and 12th position would be given to drivers who had the most wins. Then 2013 happened, and good God knows why a 13th driver was added, but anyways, then in 2014, the elimination format was introduced, and this was widely hated. 3 reasons why NASCAR made this change. Number 1, Jimmy Johnson exposed the format, winning 6 championships from 2004 to 2013. Number 2, the teams wanted to put more of an emphasis on winning. And the third, NASCAR wanted to align themselves more with March Madness by having these Game 7 moments or winner-take-all formats. But back to the format. In 2014, if you wanted to make the chase, all you had to do was win a race, and the field expanded to 16. If you wanted to advance to the next round automatically, you must win a race. The format split the 10-race chase into 4 rounds and introduced eliminations every 3 races to the bottom 4 drivers until 4 drivers remain in a winner-take-all format in the final race of the season. Which brings us to 2017 and the current format with stage racing. Still using the elimination system, but now with every stage, whoever wins that stage gets a playoff point, and whoever wins a race gets 5 playoff points. Those carry you until the final race of the season, with the regular season champion earning another 15 playoff points on top of that. To the people that are still new to NASCAR, tell me if you understood all of what I just said, which actually leads me into a first issue with the current playoff system. It's too gimmicky. It's simple. Fans come to see a race, not perform trigonometry. For the way of crowning a champion of a major sport to go through all these hoops just to see who will win the title leaves you feeling one way. Why is all this needed? If you're trying to explain to someone that knows nothing about NASCAR and it takes you more than 30 seconds to explain how a points format works, you have some problems. Now Ash Vandalay on TikTok, which by the way she makes great content, go ahead and check her out, posted a 1 minute and 49-second clip on how each of the big 3 racing series crowns their champion: F1, IndyCar, and NASCAR. It took her 12 seconds to explain F1's points format, and IndyCar took her around 13 seconds. NASCAR, on the other hand, took her 1 minute and 7 seconds to explain. It took her 42 seconds more to explain NASCAR's format than Formula 1 and IndyCar's format combined. And she was doing it in a time crunch. She was going as fast as she could. Now, gimmicks in NASCAR are a bigger issue, but for this situation, we're just referencing the playoffs. Now, gimmicks is a touchy subject. It's more okay in areas like professional wrestling. Things like the Elimination Chamber or the Royal Rumble work because the sole purpose of pro wrestling is entertainment. Another example, if you want to use racing, was the SRX. Like having a 10-lap shootout works because, again, the sole purpose of it is entertainment. In NASCAR, it doesn't work because you can't focus on entertainment and take yourself seriously as a sport. At least you want to try and balance it. Yes, you are in the entertainment business, and yes, you do want to be an entertaining sport, and gimmicks can help you with that, but it's how you use it. Like having the in-season tournament beginning next year, or the Noble 5 that was run during the Winston Cup era, or the Dash for Cash program in the Xfinity Series. Those things work because it offers a form of entertainment but doesn't really affect the main product. It's like the NBA Cup that's happening right now. It's entertaining, it's exciting, but it doesn't really truly affect the overall scope of the game. Now with NASCAR, you don't want it to be manufactured. You want it to play out naturally and let the drivers determine how the season goes, not NASCAR themselves. Number 2, NASCAR is not a stick and ball sport. Now I hear it all the time from people who defend the playoffs. Oh, but look at the 2008 Patriots. They won every game but lost in the Super Bowl. First off, I just want to say this. Anyone that brings up the 2008 Patriots as a reasoning to defend the playoffs, I want to strangle you. Because that has to be one of, if not the dumbest example I've ever heard for defending this system. And if you do use that as an example, you automatically lose the argument. Anyways, there are so many variables for that example. Most importantly, the Patriots played 13 of the other 31 NFL teams, which plays a massive role in this. But most importantly, NASCAR is not a stick and ball sport. For the NBA, NHL, and MLB in the playoffs, you have to play the same team at least 4 times to make sure who's better, because of the so many variables. You can argue on whether or not it's not perfect, but it makes sense at least. Oh, and please tell me, if all 32 NFL teams all of a sudden started playing on the same gridiron, then I'll shut up. But until that happens, you cannot compare NASCAR to football. In NASCAR, you face the same drivers every single week. Why do you need to have a playoff format to see who's the best? Speaking of the NFL playoffs, at least their playoffs feature the 14 best teams with the record in the league and or in their respective divisions. In the NASCAR playoffs, it's just drivers who won a race. If the playoffs are supposed to be for the best of the best, why was Michael McDowell and Stenhouse in it last year? Or this year when a driver was 34th in points in Harrison Burton, won at Daytona, and shot up 18 positions to be in the playoffs? Or a few weeks earlier than that when Austin Dillon, who was 30th in points, won at Richmond. Luckily, thanks to his mindset of becoming a mass murderer, the win didn't count for the playoffs. Part of what I think of the attraction of NASCAR over the years is that it was different. When you start trying to be something you're not, it's gonna fall flat on your face. You see it all the time in movies and just life in general. If there is someone that you like and you try to change your entire personality just to please that person, one of 2 things is gonna happen. 1, that person still won't like you, and 2, the people that did like your original personality no longer want to be with you because of how fake you are. Another major issue with this whole comparison of NASCAR and other stick and ball sports is that auto racing as a whole operates so much differently than any other regular form of sport. You compete against 35 other charter drivers at the same time, even during the playoffs. So things like having a slower driver causing a wreck and you get caught up in it, or weather. Just an example that shows that racing is too chaotic with so many variables that you need to have a point system that can counter that and keep it level. Not a playoff format which basically lights a match all over gasoline. Number 3, it promotes chaos. Like I ended off in the last topic, you need to have a points format that basically balances the crazy chaotic world of NASCAR racing. And the playoffs do anything but that. Having win and you're in and eliminations promotes a do or die mentality that leads to tactics that are frowned upon in racing. How about the truck race at Phoenix last year when you had 2 drivers that tried to kill each other just because it was a winner take all system? Or Kevin Harvick in 2020 in a last ditch effort straight up dumped Kyle Busch just to get one more spot to make it to the championship 4. Or in 2015 when Harvick is in a lot of these situations, wrecked Trevor Bayne on purpose, causing a multi-car crash just so he could keep his position and not lose points that had him drop out of the playoffs. And do I have to bring up what happened at Martinsville just a couple weeks ago? Again, Steve O'Donnell, you said this is a sport, not a soap opera. So why are we encouraging this? No storytelling. I'm gonna start off this segment by throwing in another WWE reference. Let's say Prime Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and John Cena in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship. Sounds cool, right? Now what if I told you that I announced that match 4 days before WrestleMania. You probably think, okay, I mean, that's cool and all, but where's the storyline? The promos, why should we care? Something Cody Rhodes said on the Dale Jr. Download struck me when he said that sometimes the promos or events that happened that led up to the match were more memorable to fans than the match itself. Why do I bring this up? Because that's basically the NASCAR Championship race in a nutshell, and this is my biggest issue with the playoffs, is that it is impossible to create a story. Let me rephrase that by saying a story that happens organically. See, the beauty about having the same drivers compete at the same time week after week is that you have the ability to create numerous storylines that can take place throughout the season. Again, in 1992, you had 6 drivers in contention: Bill Elliott, Alan Kulwicki, Davey Allison, Kyle Petty, Harry Gant, and Mark Martin, all in contention in the second half of the season, within reach for the title, and every race, or if we're talking in storylines, every chapter leading up to the climax of the story being the final race of the season. 2002 between Jeff Gordon, Sterling Marlin, Mark Martin, Jimmy Johnson, and Tony Stewart. Even during the chase era, you had the ability to create storylines. 2004, the inaugural chase. Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Mark Martin, and Dale Jr. Or my personal favorite, 2010, with Hamlin, Johnson, and Harvick. All were serious championship contenders, and every week was a battle to see who could put the best 10-race package with wild things that happened. It may have been forced a little bit because of the chase, but still, the progression from race 1 to race 10 still happened organically. The best example I will use is F1 in 2021. The storyline heading into the season was already something worth watching. On one side you had Red Bull, the red-headed stepchild of F1, unless you're a Red Bull fan, and their driver, a young and hungry Max Verstappen, trying to bring his team back to the top. We knew he had the talent, but now he has the car to do it. On the other side, you had the GOAT of our generation, Lewis Hamilton, and the team that took over Red Bull's domination in Mercedes for the past 7 seasons up to that point, and the battles and roller coasters of events that took place throughout the season, and the confrontations like at Silverstone, Monza, Sao Paulo, and Saudi Arabia. Those moments and chapters of the season are why the final race was one of the most anticipated in sports history in some time. No one cares that it's the championship race unless there is a deeper meaning to it. Going back to my earlier topic, NASCAR is not the NFL. The NFL is probably the only sport where people will watch the championship race regardless of who's playing. With NASCAR or racing in general, people have to care about a championship if there is a reason to, not just because it is a championship race. I mean, look at this year's championship 4. Blaney, Logano, Byron, and Reddick. Honestly, could you tell me anything that happened between those 4 drivers that you can create a story behind? You really can't. In some ways, if you take a back seat, it's almost as if NASCAR just picked 4 drivers and said, okay, y'all go race for a title. And you're asking fans, both hardcore and especially casual fans, to care about something that only has 5 days of hype with very little substance. When the main purpose to get people to watch the final race of the season is, oh, it's the championship race, that's what you should watch, you have a problem. Fans of racing will watch racing regardless. A great season is like having your favorite flavor of cake. Having a great championship battle is like adding all the delicious toppings on top of it. Yes, the cake would taste much better with all those toppings, but even without it, it's still very good. Which leads into my other point. It's okay to have a boring championship. I know it sounds crazy, but hear me out. What was another reason why F1 2021 was so special? It was the first time in a long time that someone not named Mercedes or Hamilton had a real shot at the title. Those moments are special. It's the same reason why Game 7 moments are so special. It's because they're rare. If a Game 7 were to happen every single year, it becomes less exciting and more part of the norm. With NASCAR having a winner-take-all scenario for the championship, that specialty has worn off very quickly. Maybe in year 1 or year 2 it was interesting, but now 10 years into it, how can you expect fans to get excited for it when you know it's guaranteed and it's gonna happen the following season? Why was 2010 so much fun to watch? Because it was the first time in the Jimmy Johnson era where the 48 looked mortal. 2011 was special since it was the first time Jimmy Johnson wasn't part of the championship, and it was a winner-take-all that happened organically from race 1 to race 10. If a team puts together a championship caliber year like Kevin Harvick in 2020 and locks up the title with 1 or 2 races remaining, then that's fine. And by the way, with the next gen era coming into play, leveling out the playing field a bit more and parity becoming much more prevalent, it's actually going to be harder than ever for a driver to straight up win the championship with 1 or 2 races to go. I mean, look at the first 3 years of the next gen era. 19 different winners in 2022, 15 in 2023, and 18 this year. Yes, maybe in the early 2000s it was a lot easier for a driver to straight up win the title with no pressure the entire year, But in today's era of NASCAR, where the competition is so intense and the cars are a lot more equal nowadays, it's harder than ever for a driver to straight up steal the season with nothing happening. Anyways, back to the video. Look at the 2003 season. That year had some awesome moments, even though one driver led the standings for nearly 92% of the season. And still, ratings were a lot higher in 2003 than 2002. Would it be better if there was an exciting championship fight? Yes. But is it necessary? No. It's okay to have a boring championship because it makes you cherish those close battles in the final stretch. A big issue with the playoffs is that it's not taken seriously. The thing with the current playoff system is that you don't see much care for it. When Kevin Harvick was knocked out of the playoffs after a 9-win season, probably the best season by a single driver in more than 20 years, for his reaction to be this?
Look, these championships aren't like winning like Petty and Earnhardt used to win them. You have to, put them together 3 weeks at a time. And, it comes down to one race, and it came down to one race for us tonight and came up short.
Kevin Harvick, obviously.
Shocking. Not even an ounce of disappointment. More focus on the wins than losing a championship, and almost showing a lack of care speaks volume on how drivers view the championship nowadays. Today, drivers care more about the wins than the end goal, which is to be champion. This year's champion, Joey Logano, was statistically the worst champion in NASCAR history. Yes, in the 76-year history of NASCAR, across its 36 champions, Joey Logano was the worst. He had the worst average finish of all champions with 17.1 and has the least number of top 5s and top 10 finishes out of any champion in NASCAR's modern era, and the lowest in history since 1950. By the way, in 1950, they only had like 11 races, so that's even more pathetic when you think about it. Now, how he became a champion was incredible. He was average, to put it lightly, in the regular season. A win at Nashville locked him into the playoffs, but that was one of only 4 top 5s that year and only 4 pure top 10s. 18.3 average finish, and was 15th in standings after Darlington. Once the playoffs opened up, he began with a win at Atlanta to advance to the round of 12. Then was actually eliminated for about an hour until Alex Bowman was disqualified for weight requirements, so Logano got back in. Then won the opening race in the round of 8 in a fuel mileage game at Las Vegas to advance to the championship 4. And of course, we know what would end up happening, him leading 107 laps to win the race and claim his 3rd title. Oh my god, I just realized he's 1 away from Jeff Gordon. Anyways, his playoff run, however, was not impressive at all. His 3 wins in the playoffs were his only top 5s, and only half of the playoffs he was in the top 10 and had an average finish of 13.9. Which again, for this to be our champion, how can you take it seriously? Now, did Logano earn the championship? Absolutely. He did what he needed to do to win, and he and the 35 other drivers knew what the rules were at the beginning of the season in Daytona. So yes, he earned the championship. But does that mean that he truly deserved it from the viewpoint of the fans? Think about how Cale Yarborough or Tony Stewart, who were also 3-time champions, won their titles. Even Stewart's 2011 run was incredible, having the average finish of 4.8 and winning half of the 10-race playoffs. You can make the argument that he was the best from race 1 of the playoffs to race 10. And he still finished 3rd in the full season standings. When you look at how we've crowned our champions in this elimination format, Kyle Busch missing 11 races and still winning the championship, even though he was easily the best driver that year, still, you can miss a third of the season and be champion, or be like Blaney last year or Logano this year and just be average at best and be champion? Not even top 10 best? How do you expect fans to care and, more importantly, respect their champion in a format like this that promotes mediocrity? When you look at a driver's season, you should easily come to the conclusion, be like, yeah, he earned that. You get that feeling in other forms of racing, but with NASCAR, it's impossible to say that with a straight face. The problems with the Winston Cup era was that wins didn't mean as much, and it was all about consistency. The Chase era then moved it so that the regular season didn't really mean as much, and it was all about that 10-race battle and promoted winning a little bit more. Today's elimination era throws that out the window and solely focuses on winning and nothing else. It's like the complete opposite of the Winston Cup era, as Logano, Blaney, and Busch proven in their respective years. Just win a race in the regular season and win 2 or 3 races in the playoffs and you're golden. I don't care who you are, but I don't think that's the right way to crown a champion. So, how do we fix it? Now, whenever I talk about issues for the sport, I always like to have a way to solve it. I never like it when people complain about something that they don't like and then don't offer a solution to fix it. I also don't think NASCAR will ever return to a full season points format, even though I wouldn't mind that. Honestly, the only way that will ever happen, I think, is if NASCAR is sold to something outside of the France family and they get rid of all the Brian France cronies. Other than that, I think having some form of a playoff format is here to stay forever. Which, trust me, I would be more than happy if they went back to the full season points format, but let's be realistic here. Personally, I think the best way to have a playoff format in NASCAR is a revised 2004 chase format. However, not using the lat first system, but using today's point system. And the first thing I would do is bring back Chase for the Cup. Again, if you want to stand out and be different, that is the perfect name. Every other sport has the word playoffs next to their league's name, and personally I think Chase for the Cup sounds a lot cooler than playoffs. But have the 2004 format with the current racing format of stage racing. First reason is 10 drivers is the perfect amount for a title, since usually every season around 8 to 10 drivers have championship potential. Look at the first chase in 2004, all but maybe 2 drivers had a good argument to become a championship contender, and especially in today's NASCAR, look at the talent. All of Hendrick Motorsports, all of Joe Gibbs Racing, and all of RFK Racing. That's already 10 drivers. I'm not even including Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Tyler Reddick, and Kyle Busch, other extremely strong contenders week in and week out. It first promotes consistency in those 26 races to ensure that these are the 10 best drivers of the season. Also, imagine how fun of a battle that would be leading up to the final race of the regular season. In 2005, you had the Daytona 500 champion Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., and Kevin Harvick not make it because they weren't consistent. Today's drivers like Chase Elliott or Joey Logano are more interesting of a battle to make the top 10 than battling the top 16. And even then, when you have drivers battle the top 16 in the final races of the regular season, you know for sure they have no chance of winning the title, unless you're Logano or Blaney. Since 2014, the lowest seed anyone had ever had that went on to win the championship was 12th by Ryan Blaney, and that was an anomaly. Every year outside of 2023 and 2024, the champion was seeded 6th or better. And I'm not knocking Blaney and Logano by any means. They are deserving champions in their respective seasons. But did they have a championship season? Simply no. But with combining stage racing with the 2004 format and all those playoff points that get added onto the driver's total can ensure that the regular season means something. On top of that, creating a great 10-race stretch also ensures that every driver must be consistent from start to finish. Or let's say you want to keep this elimination format. Now, according to Adam Stern from the Sports Business Journal, there are reports of NASCAR reviewing the playoff format. But examining things like having the regular season champion should get an automatic advance into the latter rounds is stupid and doesn't solve the problem. Another thing I've also been seeing floating around as ways to switch up the playoff format by them suggesting that having a one wildcard race to open the playoffs is also really dumb and still doesn't solve the problem. And besides, knowing NASCAR, if they actually decide to do that by having a one wildcard race, you know damn sure they're gonna have Daytona or Atlanta be the one to host that wildcard race. And the last thing we need in a format like NASCAR, in a series like NASCAR, you need to have a balance. Chaos racing in NASCAR needs to be balanced by a points format that offers some stability. Now here's my solution for a more fair elimination format. First, get rid of the winning you're in. Instead of having 16 drivers contend, have only 12. Like I said earlier, you want to have drivers in the playoffs that make it difficult to say who is a champion. If you have 12 drivers perform the best consistently, instead of pulling a lucky win like at a drafting track or road course, it makes the playoffs more compelling. And the big change would be to change the number of races in the playoffs from 10 to 9 and have 3 rounds. Same rules apply at the end of 3 races, 4 are eliminated, with no automatic win you're in advance to the next round. When there are 4 drivers remaining, you have 3 races to decide who is a champion instead of a winner take all. That way you can create a storyline somewhat, and if you have a crazy moment like Christopher Bell had in 2023 with a broken rotor, you could use the 2 previous races in the championship round, plus all those playoff points to help you with that, so that every single race has some form of importance. To end this off, I want to reassure everyone that I am always going to be a passionate NASCAR fan. The reason why I'm making this video in the first place and why I spent 12 pages writing this script is because of my love for the sport. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be doing this. I understand that there is a clash of generations and that there is a general form of stubbornness among NASCAR fans, not wanting change and everything to remain the same as it was back in 1991. Changing and adapting to today's society is a good thing. If NASCAR was the same as it was in 1991, it would probably be worse off, but there is a thing as going too far. NASCAR has outright said that they look for what can be the most entertaining thing for their product, but what I don't think they realize is that it is counterproductive to what they are trying to portray themselves as. You say you want to be an entertainment sport, but also be taken seriously, which works if you can balance it, and unfortunately it's been one-sided in recent years. Some entertainment ideas help the sport, like schedule changes, going on dirt, street courses. More variety is a good thing. Marketing drivers in the entertainment division, like what they're doing with Netflix and Full Speed. but when you look at the playoffs and what it portrays, it's anything but serious. To me, the whole thing only does one thing: insults the fans' intelligence. NASCAR is saying that this will really show who is the best of the best and is able to perform on all styles of tracks when it matters most. But you ask the fans, I'm sure a lot of them will say, bullshit. No, it doesn't. It does not promote who's the best champion, just who is the luckiest or who is the best in one race, which is the exact opposite for a sport if you want to decide who is a deserving champion. I will end this off by saying this. I mentioned the 2011 title run, which was 13 years ago, 2004, 20, or 1992, more than 30 years ago. And they remember all the names of those drivers and what happened either in the lead up to that race or in the final race. Since we've had this winner take all format for 10 years now, do you honestly remember any of these Championship 4 title runs? Sure, there is an exception like Kyle Busch's 2015 comeback or Jimmy Johnson's historic 7th championship, but do you remember the other drivers that were involved? I highly doubt that. Every single year, the playoffs continue to drop in ratings. Since 2014, only 2 times has the final race had an uptick: 2015, which went from cable to network television, and 2021 because of COVID the previous year. Hell, take a look at this year's playoffs. The final few races, ratings were going up, yet the championship race, it still went down, albeit slightly. Why though? It should be the opposite. But hardcore and casual fans don't care about it because they all know it's not legit. I know there are a lot of other factors with more competition like college football, postseason in baseball, and of course the NFL. But remember, the sole purpose of the playoffs in the first place was to generate edge-of-your-seat excitement with the goal of increasing, or at the very least, maintaining the audience and fan engagement in the second half of the season. Now, it's solely based on winning and nothing else, and with the wrath of social media putting immense pressure on NASCAR to make a decision to protect the integrity of the sport and also hold the standard of what it takes to be a true and deserving champion, the next few weeks will be extremely critical on how NASCAR decides to crown their champion.